So without further ado, I will give the floor to Alan. Just there you go.
There we go. Well, good evening, everybody. Thanks for joining. I'm excited to be here. And Stacy, thank you for having us. I'm glad this event worked out really well. Just do a very quick introduction because I think probably nobody can speak better about Ken Forrester than Ken himself. And if Ken couldn't be here, then his son-in-law, I think, could probably do a fantastic job. I work with our import company called Meridian Prime. We represent a lot of different brands from South Africa, and one of the marquee brands within our lineup is the Ken Forrester line. Certainly one of the iconic brands, been around 30 plus years, making some of the best wines within South Africa. And Martinez can certainly talk more about the history of the estate and the property, and Ken and his wonderful, huge personality. But it's really been a joy to represent the wines. They're probably some of the best that we have within our portfolio, and I hope everybody enjoys them this evening. So with that, I'll let Martinez do his thing, and I will sit back and watch and listen and enjoy some wine too.
Hi guys. Thank you so much for making the time tonight. It's been, it's a lot of crazy times. I think, can everyone hear me? Cool. It's just been such a pleasure to represent Ken's Wines in the US. I moved here about 8 years ago. I actually lived on the winery for about 7 years. Before I got shipped over in a container with the wine to sell Ken's Wines. Just a little background of Ken. As his background, he actually studied as a chef, worked in a hotel business for about 5 years, and eventually figured out that he loves the food and wine beverage side of it way more than cleaning beds or managing hotels, and worked his way up, eventually owned 5 restaurants in Johannesburg. So if you think about South Africa, where all the wineries are located are all south. Johannesburg's way up in the north, so no vineyards. But Ken also created the first experience of walking into a wine cellar, which he had in his restaurant. So he didn't have any wine lists as you walked into the restaurant. So you would sit down, you would have a look at the wine list or the food, and actually decide if you're going to have red meat, white meat, fish, or whatever. And then Ken would actually take you into the his wine cellar, which he created inside of the restaurant, and make you pick your own bottle, which was kind of unique. No one ever did that in South Africa. And that's just how his passion for wine started. Eventually, him and Teresa, his wife, who are now 50-50 partners in the business, went down to Stellenbosch, where we are located, and for a wedding. And they were just driving around because it's so beautiful. It's absolutely stunning. Saw an auction sign while they were driving past one of the wineries. And Ken said to his wife, I just want to have a quick look. And his wife said, there's absolutely no way. Like, we have 3 restaurants that's doing exceptionally well. We have 2 daughters, one that's 2, one that's 4 years old. There's no reason to look at a winery. Knowing my father-in-law can be a little bit stubborn sometimes, still made the turn off, and 3.5 hours later, they walked away with the winery. So Ken eventually pulled all the plugs from Johannesburg, sold all the restaurants, and moved down to Stellenbosch with his mother-in-law. She put in quite a bit of money as well, and had to start from scratch. And if you think back 27 years ago, Stellenbosch was, or if you think about Chenin Blanc generally, was a mass-produced grape. No one really paid attention to Chenin Blanc. Chenin Blanc was made to make brandy or only used for young vines. And when these vines used to get to the age of like 9, 10 years old, they'll take it out just because the yield starts dropping. And Ken's kind of theory was, if the French can make great Vouvray, which is exactly the same grape as Chenin, why can't we do that? So Ken inherited some old Chenin Blanc vines. He didn't pull it out. He decided that he's going to be the pioneer, or the first guy in South Africa, to actually use older vines, use some oak treatment on it, as the French do, and put Chenin on the back. And that's why Ken's now known as the king of Chenin in South Africa. We now have about 12 different styles of Chenin Blanc at Ken Forrester. So we have a sparkling Chenin Blanc. We have 4 different styles of Chenin Blanc on the normal style. And then we also have a dessert wine called the T Noble Harvest. So it just shows you how versatile Chenin Blanc as a grape really is. We farm all organic, sustainable. Since day one, Ken said, I'm not going to mess up anything. Like, I want to farm sustainable because I want my kids to farm, and I want their kids to farm, and I want their kids to farm in the same way. And so we've been organic, sustainable since day one. We hand harvest all of our grapes. You'll see at the back of the label, I don't know if you can see, but there's that little icon down there that shows every bunch we harvest gets done by hand. And there's 2 reasons for that. The obvious one is quality control. So if you pick every bunch you want, you get the best grapes. But also South Africa, has anyone been to South Africa? Just to put the question on. Except you, Alan. No one else?
The Bergmans. There we go.
They've been? Okay, good to know. So we
Those
can
little
do it.
guys have been there. Look at them. Do you see them?
Yep.
Yeah.
So we can do a deeper dive in South Africa's in general, but South Africa has almost 40% unemployment rate in South Africa. So it's Ken's theory is the more people he can hire full time, the more food he can put on families' tables on a permanent basis. So we have about 60 people that's full-time employed by Ken, just living off their estate, and which makes his life so much easier as well, because they know when he wants to harvest, they know how he wants to harvest, and that's just how, like, the way he wants to give back to the community as well. So Ken also started a school called Spark, and so a lot of the profit in the petite line goes back into the community, where we started with about 45 kids, and it's now almost 200 kids that Ken still funds out of his own back pocket, employing the teachers, the computers, all of those kind of things. And that's just the person he is, which is really unbelievable. He also started a separate fund for these kids, because some of them are reaching the age where they have to go to varsity or college. So there's a separate fund for them now to be able to go to university and college as well. So that's the human being he is. He's such a nice guy, so knowledgeable, huge personality. He just walks into a room and you'll be like, oh shit, I need to know this guy. So he's my father-in-law, and yeah, I take care of the US business. And if we want to start with the rosé, just a little background. So I was actually with Ken at the New York Wine Experience. This was in 2018, no, 2017. I was with Ken, and Sasha Lasheen from Whispering Angel was really close to us. And so Ken walked up to Sasha and he said, "You have 3 beautiful models at your stand. Where do you get sommeliers that look like that?" And Sasha looked at Ken and he was like, "Do you know anything about marketing?" And Ken was like, "Obviously not." And he was like, "Those ladies have no idea about wine. But every lady that walks past my stand, that looks at them, they want to look like them. So I'm going to drink whatever they're having." And so Ken was like, "Oh shit. Okay, well, I need to come back." So he said, "Well, are you using 100% Grenache on your rosé?" And Sasha looked at him and he said, "Ken, you obviously have no idea about winemaking as well, do you?" So Ken was like, "Okay, I give up." So he said, "If you take Grenache as a grape, you take the skin off, you take the flesh off, you're left with a pip. It's a skeleton. You can't do anything with it. So I add some Vermentino." So Ken was like, "Okay, well, we don't have any Vermentino in South Africa, but we do have what is that called? Viognier." So it's like, that's very similar. It's got the floral notes. So in 2017 was the first time that we actually used 75% Grenache, 25% Viognier. And that's the style that we kind of went through. And until now, that's the recipe we have. So it's 75% Grenache, 25% Viognier.
Everyone's a little quiet. If you want to yell out what you're tasting, or if Martinez, do you want to tell us what we're tasting?
Happy days, y'all.
What do you guys think of the rosé?
Fantastic.
I love it.
Very smooth. It's not typical of a rosé.
No, and I think the way we'll taste through all these wines, but I think South Africans generally wanted to create something uniquely to what we have. If we think about the terroir, the climate, we didn't want to chase a different style. We didn't want to go to the French. We didn't want to go to New Zealand style. We do a Sauvignon Blanc in this range as well, which is pretty unique. And it just shows you that we want to take pride in what we have, the way we farm, and not trying to copy someone else. But I think for me, this rosé is just unbelievable because of it's got fruit, it's got acidity, it's light, but it's not bland. And I feel like living in the US now for the last 8 years, there's so many bland rosés, especially at way higher price points, where I'm like, I don't know, I just like, and I think this over delivers in so many ways. It's got enough fruit, it's got enough acidity, and it's something you can sip on all year long. Those days of just drinking rosé in summer is over. I think people are drinking rosés year long now.
The ultimate turkey wine, right? For Thanksgiving.
Exactly.
Everybody drink this up. And if you want to reorder for the holiday, I have plenty. Not that that's a shameless push, but it is.
I'm in, Stace.
And Martinez, one thing I'll add when I talk about this wine is that it has a lot of structure to it as well. So
Right.
it's got the somewhat typical color that you expect to see from like a Provence style rosé, but it's got a little more oomph, a little more structure, especially now as we move into the cooler months. So not only is it a perfect Thanksgiving pairing, it's not a little wimpy rosé. So it's
No,
nice on a cool evening like tonight, might be sitting in front of a fireplace with some friends or around a cheese course. So it really holds up very nicely just because of the weight and the structure. The Viognier
100%.
just gives that backbone to the wine, which is really beautiful.
100%. No, I agree. And I think people should not be afraid of older rosé as well. I think I actually opened up a 2017 rosé just a week ago, and it was stunning. It was just stunning because the wine actually had some time to settle in the bottle. And I'm just like, so many people are afraid when they see a rosé that's 2 years old. They're like, no, 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 I can't touch it. Don't be afraid. Experience it, try it. If you don't like it, fair enough. But I just feel like rosé needs some time in the bottle, and it's the same thing with Sauvignon Blanc. It needs some time in the bottle just to settle down. Do we want to move over to the Reserve Chenin?
Fantastic. So first explain to us why it's called that, and old vine Chenin, explain about old vines, that kind of stuff.
So it's actually funny. We, South Africa, I'll show you on the label. There's a little capsule right there. So if you ever had a wine tasting, at a blind tasting, and you see that little capsule, that's a dead giveaway. It's South African wine. Just because 95% of wineries in South Africa are part of this organization, where we farm all sustainable, organic, hand harvest all of our grapes, and everything on that label is on the website. So, and if you mess up once, you are gone permanently. You would never be able to get back onto that organization. So we farm, like, this is 45-year-old vines, and we pick these grapes twice. So quite a unique way of harvesting, where all the outside grapes that had the most exposure to the sun, we'll pick those grapes first. That grapes goes to steel tank. That's basically our fruit component or our acidity component. So we'll let that go, and we'll wait about 2 weeks to go back into the same vineyard. It's a single vineyard. Go back again, pick the inside grapes, and that goes into used barrels for 9 months. So no new oak at all, only used barrels, and only 400-liter barrels, so the big oak barrels, for 9 months. And it's usually a 50-50 split between the first picking and the second picking. And then we'll blend those two components together. So one, you get that freshness, flintiness, and more acidic backbone from the first picking. And then the second picking, you'll get more of the texture, roundness, fruit component. And we wanted to mix those two together to give you the Old Vine Reserve Chenin.
Cheers. Can you tell us too why you picked to do the pink before the white, and if there's any rules to how you should taste them?
There's no rules. The reason why I picked the Old Vine Reserve Chenin is just because there is some oak treatment on it, where with the rosé it's 100% steel tank. So I wanted to keep it clean, fresh on the rosé, and then with the Chenin, it needs. If is anyone having some shrimp tonight? It's the most perfect pairing with shrimp. I've got a couple of restaurants in New York City that have had this wine on their list for so many years, just because it's such a perfect pairing. Chenin Blanc, if you think about it in general, Chenin Blanc loves spice. If you think about Sauvignon Blanc, it's kind of narrowed down to certain cuisines. And Chenin Blanc has this broad window of just being able to absorb any kind of spices, give it back. So you have complements the food, but also complements the wine back again. So if anyone's having any spicy food, Chinese or Asian kind of food, Chenin Blanc is your perfect match, 100%.
Now, you see Chenin more in South Africa than you don't really see Chenin anymore in the United States. Alan, correct me if I'm wrong.
No, you see it, but not too often. It's not. It's the most widely planted grape in South Africa, certainly on the white side, and it's a wonderful wine as we're experiencing. But you're right, you don't see it as often as you should, and we should see it more because it is such a versatile wine and a perfect pairing for so many types of foods too.
And then, and am I, it's also, and stop me if you already said this, in South Africa, Chenin is also known as Steen.
I think people are moving away from it, and especially my father-in-law, just because Steen is kind of connected to a mass-produced grape, where we wanted to move away from that and try to make Chenin Blanc an elegant grape. So yes, it's known as Steen, but we try to move away from that.
My bad, sorry.
Not at all.
How's everybody digging this one? Brooke, let's hear from you, girl.
I don't know. Is there wine I don't like?
For me personally, I like I'm Ken's son-in-law, so I'm not allowed to be biased at all. But I've got 2 of these bottles cold in my fridge all the time. And the reason for that is just because I call it the perfect party wine. So if you're having friends over for drinks or dinner, you know how it is. You don't know if they like Sauvignon Blanc, Chardonnay, Pinot Grigio, or like, you never know. And Chenin Blanc for me cuts it right in the middle. Like, you can pour someone a glass of Chenin Blanc when they arrive and they'll be like, oh, that's really nice. And that's Ken's theory. Like, if someone picks up a glass of wine, taste it, and be like, oh, that's really nice. For him, that's 100 points. Doesn't matter if it's coming from Parker or like Spectator or whatever. If someone picks up a glass of wine, taste it, and that's nice, home run. So, and I think Chenin Blanc really does that in the white wine division. It's so versatile. It's got enough acidity for your Sauvignon Blanc drinkers and your Riesling people to be like, oh, that's nice. But it's also got enough depth and weight for your Chardonnay drinkers. But that's really, really nice. So that's why I love this wine. It's one of my favorites, or personal favorites, and it just over delivers in so many ways.
That's a great description. I like that. It
I'm
is.
gonna jump in and say the same thing. Like, it's my mother-in-law's Chardonnay all the way, all the time. But to me, that's like too oaky.
Mm-hmm.
I do Sauvignon Blanc a lot of more days than I'd like to admit, but
that's okay.
but I think that is a nice, light, refreshing wine. Yeah, you know, with that description.
Again, I hate to keep pushing Thanksgiving, but this is a great Thanksgiving wine too, because
100%.
it goes with the turkey, it goes with the ham, just like the rosé. You know, everybody loves rosé because it offsets the blandness of the Thanksgiving dinner, but it also goes great with the ham, keeping the pinks together. But yeah, this is a nice, good, light, fun. And what's the alcohol percentage on the Chenin?
13.5.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it's not going to weigh you down.
No. You'll be okay.
It's always the second bottle that gets you.
Exactly, Anna.
You know,
Do we
one of
wanna-
the fun things, somebody had talked to us in a training about Shannon, and Martinez was keying in on this. There's the Venn diagram. So if you take the Riesling and a Sauvignon Blanc and a Chardonnay, and they overlap, and right in the middle of that overlap is where Chenin Blanc will fall. Just as like Martinez was talking, between the acidity and the fruit and the weight and viscosity and things like that. And Chenin becomes a perfect pairing because it works for everybody.
Right.
If you don't know who's coming and what they like, do they like what kind of white, a Riesling, a Pinot Grigio? Chenin works pretty much for everybody. It's almost foolproof.
Yep, 100%. Are we ready to move over to the reds?
Absolutely. So I'm going to assume you're doing the Pinotage next.
Yes.
Okay. So for those that don't know about Pinotage, I'm going to say, and again, you'll correct me if I'm wrong. I remember when I first started selling Pinotage, like 25 years ago, I hate to admit that. It was so dirty tasting, so earthy and
100%.
okay. So go ahead. How has it evolved?
So Pinotage, just for you guys to put it in perspective, it was 120 years ago. There was a professor at the University of Stellenbosch, and they have a great agricultural department. He thought that it would be a great idea to take Pinot Noir and Cinsault and create a hybrid grape. So they had all these agricultural fields, or more than enough land that they could use, planted it everywhere, and thought it was going to be a great idea. They made a big mistake. So Pinotage, being family of Pinot Noir, it's a grape that's full of shit. It needs specific elevation. It needs to be close to the ocean in a certain way. It needs certain soil. So they made a lot of mistakes in the beginning. And what they didn't recognize was like they shipped bad Pinotage into the US, and people were like, what is this? It tastes like Band-Aid, burnt rubber, burnt coffee, and it got a really bad reputation. And so I think we took our foot off the pedal a little bit, try to figure out what we need to do with this grape, because generally, if you think about South African wine, the two grapes that pop up are Chenin Blanc and Pinotage. So Pinotage gave us a really bad rep as a South African wine producing country. And Ken took a step back and looked at the kids, especially the kids that sound like 25, 30 years old. And in the last 5 years, I personally think, not just from Ken Forrester wines, just for South African wines, Pinotage has been unbelievable. What these kids have been producing and figured out in the last 80 years have been unbelievable. So with our Pinotage, it's the only grape that we do not use native yeast. So all the other wines that we make on the estates, all 100% native yeast. This is imported champagne yeast. So Ken imports Bilka champagne into South Africa. He's the importer, so he has a little bit of a in to get some of the yeast. So we import some of the yeast, and the reasoning behind that is just to blast the fermentation process. So because Pinotage is family of Pinot Noir, it's a difficult grape to work with, and to keep the focus on the fruit, keep it clean, and just keep it more towards Pinotage should be, we use champagne yeast. So there's
Sorry,
no
that was
oak.
me.
No problem. And there's no oak treatment at all. So 100% steel tank, clean, fresh, focus on the fruit. And it's such a, who has some Italian food with tonight?
Yes, I did.
Oh, good, good. Interesting. I was gonna say, it looks like everybody's having like little nashi type things, but good for you, Todd.
Yeah. We have olives.
Anyone has some tomato sauce or marinara sauce?
We have some sun-dried tomatoes, which are
We
actually
do,
really
yeah.
nice with it.
We're enjoying
So I
the
want to.
pizza very much.
They say the wheel.
So with the tomato, take if you have some sun-dried tomatoes or anything tomato, even if it's just normal marinara, take a sip of the wine,
Mm-hmm.
take a piece of the marinara or sun-dried tomato, and taste the wine after and see what the difference is. It's unbelievable. It blows my mind. It cleans it out completely.
So,
It's the acidity in the tomato
mm-hmm.
that cleans it out completely.
Yeah, yeah.
That's what I always tell my some of my sales people, like target Italian restaurants because and
Nice.
have
Yeah.
a tasting with the chef, because if you taste the wine and then taste the food afterwards, it's just so smooth. It's completely changes it.
Mm-hmm.
Delicious. Fantastic.
That's a great compliment. Thank you.
Yeah.
Works with charcuterie too.
100%. Yep. And everyone can feel free if they don't like pinotage, because I love the feedback if you don't like it.
I like it. To that lady's point before, there's not a lot of wines that I taste that. That's not true. That's not true. There are definitely a lot of wines that I taste that I would never drink again.
Most of her wines have been good though.
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah,
yeah.
we've liked most of the
Yeah.
ones that she's.
That
Ollie.
bubbly session was a
Are
really
you going
good
to send
session.
her a picture of Oliver joining our
That's
session?
very memorable.
But was
But there was another one that
You just
that's
turn the
what I
Wines
camera.
found
of
my
the
favorite
world.
one.
I can't find it.
I haven't seen it.
Which one?
But
The Vouv.
Oh.
you know what I love about it? It's in that white bottle, so you can't miss it when you're looking for it.
When they had it at
Sorry.
So you guys want to move on to the next one?
Ashley Martinez, before you move on, would you
Yeah.
mind sharing a little bit about the Petite lineup? Because we did the Petite Rosé and Petite Pinotage. The story behind the name and kind of Ken's general concept about what
Yeah.
the Petite should be.
Yeah, so we have the three different tiers. The petite, French name small, so it's basically our young vines. So, and everything we do in the petite line, even in the red wines, is 100% steel tank. So the young vines range from between 9 to 16-year-old vines. And then in the reserve range, we jump to about 45-year-old vines, which you taste it with the reserve Chenin. And then we go up to about 70-year-old vines in the Icon. So those are kind of the three tiers that we have in the US. Ken has a couple of wines that he makes on the estate that he calls the cellar reserves, which he does not want to give to me, but that's fair enough. It's kind of an attraction for people to get to South Africa. And I think now that borders are opening up, people are hopefully going back to South Africa and experiencing the whole thing. So those are kind of like the three different tiers. But I think I saw Ken a couple of weeks ago, and it was just like he wants to put on so much emphasis on, even in the petite line, which is our volume driven brand, we don't buy grapes. Ken's a little bit he says, I've got my name on the label, so I want to know exactly what's going into that bottle. So we don't buy in any grapes at all. We farm our own vines, we hand harvest our grapes, we manage them, and which is pretty unique, specifically at that price point. There's not a lot of wineries in the world, not just from South Africa, but in the world, that can tell you that they farm that way, which is pretty unique.
So while we're waiting to get to the Renegade, I want to draw everyone's attention to the gentleman with the happy birthday. It looks like a happy birthday tiara that he's wearing. This gentleman is usually known as Mr. Snarky because he's always got a comment, but I dig him. And happy birthday to you. I like your happy birthday tiara.
Happy birthday.
Happy birthday.
Happy birthday.
Happy birthday.
My husband's doing the birthday dance for you. I hope you appreciate that.
I am too. Happy birthday.
Unmuted.
Cheers to your birthday.
Happy
birthday.
Happy birthday.
Now, if you can sing all together, I'd appreciate it.
You don't know.
Happy
birthday.
Come on, everyone.
birthday to
Day
you.
to you. Happy. What's your first name?
This is snarky.
Happy
Happy
birthday
birthday
to
to
you.
you.
People been drinking? You sound like you've been drinking.
Happy birthday. Appreciate it. Is that snarky enough?
Good. That was, I think, for having not practiced in advance, I think we did very, very
I
well.
think we did okay.
Who's got a good toast for the birthday boy?
Right.
Somebody opened it to me, I think. Somebody must have their mics on.
Oops, had to mute them because they have 3 devices on in the same room. Sorry.
All right. Are we waiting on the toast or are we going on to the next bottle?
Oh, I think we'll.
As you slide down the banister of life, my friends, may the splinters go in the right direction. Happy days.
Thank you, Molly.
Very good.
So let's move on to the next bottle. So the Renegade. So this is my father-in-law's kind of or not kind of, this is his go-to. When he gets back from work on a Wednesday, walk back from home, just wants to have a nice glass of red wine. This is his go-to. So Rhone varietals, Grenache, Syrah, Mourvedre. And we have a Mediterranean climate in South Africa. So it makes 100% sense that those 3 varietals will work well. And so we have all of that on the estate. And these vines are between 65 and 69-year-old vines between the 3 varietals. And so I'll pick them, ferment in 2 separate barrels for about 14 months generally. And Ken and his assistant would go into the barrel room after 14 months, each with a piece of white chalk. They'll mark the barrels that they like the best and put the blend together afterwards and be like, oh, it is 45% Grenache, 35 Shiraz with a little bit of Mourvedre, hence the name Renegade. There's no rules, no recipe. It's just the best grapes every vintage that goes into that bottle. And I really respect it. It's such a great, great wine. And a lot of people call South African wines New Old. Hey, we've been making wines for 375 years. And the Renegade for me really shows the old world kind of style that we wanted to create. That's how we learned how to make wine, and that's how we wanted to create the Renegade.
It's very
And for me, like the food pairing with the Renegade is just like, if you have some smoked duck or even like a rack of lamb. For me, my favorite is a rack of lamb with this. It's just unbelievable.
Yeah, I had grilled lamb chops that I paired it with tonight.
Oh, perfect.
Where does he live?
Who? John Miguel?
That him? I want to go.
Sorry, they're gone.
How is the pairing? How is the pairing, John?
Oh, it was very good. I mean, at first I considered the Pinotage, but the Renegade just seemed much better suited to the
100%. Yeah.
And I'm glad you suggested the Italian food for the Pinotage, because that makes a lot of sense to me.
Yeah. I think the Pinotage with Italian food, and especially it's now obviously we're getting out of the season for grilling, but Pinotage is the perfect grilling red wine. And at that price point, you can open up a bottle on a Monday, Tuesday night, just flipping some burgers, putting some Pinotage in your glass. It is the perfect pairing because you still get a little bit of that smokiness from Pinotage compared with your burger or ribs. It's just such a great pairing. But I think if you want to do more complex dealing with something like your lamb chops, that would be perfect with the Renegade.
Can you tell us a little bit about this this blend, GSM, and how that has become so popular? Or Alan, if you want to chime into that.
Yeah, I think the reasoning behind the GSM for us in South Africa or in Stellenbosch is just because of our location. It's Mediterranean. We're close to the ocean. It's hot during summer, and we're also close to the ocean. So it's perfect combination. And when Ken actually bought the winery, people told him, "You crazy. Plant Cabernet, plant Chardonnay, plant Sauvignon Blanc." And he was just like, we have to look at this from like where we are. We are close to the ocean. We have a Mediterranean climate. So let's do Chard or Cabernet. Oh, let's do Shiraz, Grenache, and Mourvedre. And Ken was the first one to actually plant Mourvedre in Stellenbosch, which is pretty unique. So we have the oldest planted Mourvedre in South Africa.
Stacy, you're on mute.
Oh, I'm sorry. Can you
Stacy.
see this?
What is that?
That's an old label when I used to sell. So the Ken Forrester wines just came back into New Jersey, right, Alan?
Yeah, we just started working with them back in June.
It's the same wine.
But this is when they used to be in Jersey years ago. I sold all the Pettit wines back in the day.
Wow. That's like 100% Grenache.
And that's an old label.
So
Now,
how far back was that, Stacy?
2016, yeah.
very different color.
It's actually a 2010.
Wow.
Isn't that awesome?
That's crazy.
Yeah, so your father-in-law came into the store, into my store, and I'm pretty sure Jack met him. And
That's her partner.
I introduced him to his first pumpkin beer. He had never had pumpkin beer, but he came into my store like this time back in the day. I guess it was 2011, 2012. I don't know.
Right.
And I sent him home with a bunch of pumpkin beers.
That's hilarious.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's hilarious.
So how's everybody liking? I want to get some input from everybody. I haven't heard from my friend Joe Matches. I haven't heard from the Cinnaminson Andersons. We have Cinnaminson Andersons and Pemberton Andersons. I haven't heard from Tracy.
Everyone's eating.
I know. I haven't heard from Nicole and her crew.
I
We
think
like
the
this one a
last
lot.
line is oofa.
Who's saying oofa?
Oofa. Woo!
That's
Take me back a little bit.
Mhm.
What?
Very nice. Very nice.
oof.
I'm gonna card Ryan, who's next to Brooke right there. Ryan, I'm gonna ask you for some ID right there, girl.
Oofa.
Does that mean awful?
It just means
She took off the charcuterie board.
It just means woo.
Oofa.
Everything. No, everything was delicious. The last wine, the Renegade, I felt like I'm not a big red wine drinker, but I felt like that was the most closest to, I spent a year in Italy, the closest to like an Italian wine, which I like that little bitterness taste of it. So
It's old world. Yeah.
yeah, it's delicious. Everything else, everything's been fantastic. So
Thank you. I really appreciate it.
together, it's great. Taking us on a ride, it's fantastic.
Really appreciate it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was gonna say the wines worked well with the pairings. I put what did I put? I put a tomato with the one that you were saying for the tomato sauce, and that was really good. It's a raw tomato to go with that.
Oh,
Was
with the
really nice.
pinotage?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, that worked. That just was just like brought out the tomato.
It's mind blowing, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I think the fresher stuff works better. I had a cranberry French La Roux cheese that I used for the rosé, and that elevated that flavor and that texture. So
Right.
that was really nice. And then I made the mistake of using a Rasselet cheese for the pinotage, and that was a big mistake. So I went downhill from there. Pinotage, the cheese didn't
Go
work.
back to the tomatoes.
What did you say worked with a pinotage better? Like what food pairing?
Anything tomato based. So
Tomato based.
fresh-
Okay.
Yeah. So fresh tomatoes, like marinara sauce. So if you're
Right.
doing pizza, pasta, like burgers, like it's such a great pairing.
Well, that was good. I just
Joe, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Go back. I'm sorry.
no. I think I muted myself. I'm still trying to work. I've never used a Zoom before. I bought their
Welcome to
stock. I thought they'd take off, but I could see why they didn't. But no, I was just gonna say I used a Swiss Rasselet cheese for the pinotage. It didn't work, but then when I used fresh tomatoes and things like that, it worked
Oh,
wonderfully.
perfect,
It tasted
yeah.
really good. Yeah, that was
100%.
just a
Yeah.
perfect pairing.
Yeah. Perfect.
Of
Thank
all
you.
the Italian restaurants we have in New Jersey, and certainly the BYO ones, it's always a great bottle to bring with you every time you go out. It's my go-to for my local Italian joints.
Yeah, 100%.
Do you see what Jack put in the chat? My son would call the Renegade bulletproof, meaning it would pair well with a wide variety of food.
Yep.
And that's a chef.
And a wine expert. He trained in Napa as a chef.
Yeah, he trained at the Culinary Institute of America.
Where does he work? What restaurant is he?
Well,
Is he local?
now he's a corporate chef for a very large retirement community
Oh, okay.
in Lancaster, Pennsylvania.
Okay.
But so he hasn't cooked much lately,
Mm.
which I regret.
Yes. Me too. He used to, when I used to do my ladies' nights at the store once a year, he was my house chef. And he used to do a Thanksgiving, he would call it Thanksgiving on a stick. And it was just a toothpick with turkey, cranberry stuffing, and a few other things on one toothpick. It was to die for. So I put in the chat for those who want to order individual bottles. The Rosé and the Pinotage are 14 a piece. The Chenin is 18 and the Renegade is 25 a piece. If anybody wants for Thanksgiving, let me know. You all have my phone number. You can text me or call me and I will deliver before Thanksgiving to you.
Okay, Rich is in a panic because he thinks you don't have any more of the Pinotage.
I have plenty.
Oh, the Pinotage is 14, babe. We're fine.
Don't
Liz and
panic.
I are like full
We'll be all
tasting
good.
on the rosé.
Okay.
So good.
Okay.
And we like that he likes the Renegade very much too. Those are all the varieties that we like and,
Yeah.
and drink. A
Yeah,
lot.
and the Renegade,
It's so
it
good.
smells fantastic
And
and
we
it's gonna mellow with time.
keep back vintages as well. So I think what you have in your glass is probably 2016.
Correct.
Yeah.
That's right. Yeah.
And we deliberately hold back on the vintages just because it just makes so much more sense
Mhm.
to
Nice. Yeah.
give it some time. And if you look at stuff at the moment in the market, like most of the Cabernets or Merlots or like even red blends from the US are like 18, 19 vintage. So for us to be coming in at like 16, it's like, yeah. So it's kind of cool.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
Very nice.
Thank you, Eddie. Does anybody have any other questions, concerns,
Yeah.
comments?
They should.
If I drink too much Renegade, will I become an alcoholic?
No,
We all had
never.
a fantastic time. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you,
And
guys.
we are good
you,
and shipping.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.
Very nice.
Happy birthday again.
Where can we get the recording? In case I want
I will have it ready within 48 hours.
Shit, I forgot this was recorded.
Yeah, exactly. This is all documented. So you'll have it within 48
No
hours.
one got into trouble, so that's
I'm
okay.
Do you watch
I'm not
recordings
as
like home
sophisticated
movies? Is that,
as you, Mr.
John, is that your?
Yeah, Jack, he's gonna
But the
keep it.
wine
And then,
goes great with pretzels.
yeah. All right, Snarky. Snarky
Happy
guy.
birthday.
Thank you.
Happy birthday.
Jack, it'll be on the Red, White, and Brew YouTube channel. I'll send you the link once I download
you.
everything. All right.
Thank you so much.
All right, guys. Have a wonderful, if I don't see you all, have a wonderful Thanksgiving and a happy holiday.
You too,
Me too.
We have
Stacy.
two more tastings coming up in the near future. Thanks, Noah.
Thank you.
So much.
Bye, everybody.
Okay, we'll see you. Take care.
Happy Thanksgiving.
Happy Thanksgiving, everyone.
Great group. I love it. Great group.